In this video, we're going to be going over Chapter 6, Challenge Problem 6.3, Converting Temperatures. To start with, I've opened up a new REPL with the language setting as Python, and I've copy and pasted the text of the problem into my window here. So for this problem, I'm going to write a script that defines two functions. Convert Celsius to Fahrenheit, takes one parameter, which is going to be this degrees Celsius, and returns the same temperature in degrees Fahrenheit. We also want another function that's going to do the opposite, convert Fahrenheit to Celsius. When we have our formulas here, we see that Fahrenheit equals Celsius times 9/5 plus 32, and then we also see what Celsius equals in Fahrenheit. So to start with, from reading the chapter, we know that we have to define the functions before we actually use them. So the first thing we're going to do is define these two functions. Also from the chapter, you know the syntax starts with def, and then from here we're going to input the name of our function. So start with convert Celsius to Fahrenheit. We have our parentheses here where we want to put our arguments. In this case, we have one argument, and that is the degrees. So we can name this whatever we want. So we're converting Celsius to Fahrenheit, so we can put degrees Celsius. There we go. Now, you need to make sure that you end that line with a colon. And then from there, everything within the function needs to be indented. Indenting in Python is very important. If you're using an editor like Replit, it'll automatically indent for you, which is very helpful. So the formula to convert a Celsius value to a Fahrenheit value is up here. You can see the Fahrenheit value equals Celsius times those. So what we can do is we can just return, and then we can put our degrees Celsius. If you wanted to make it even simpler, you can just call your argument C. However you want to do it. In this case, I'll use the more lengthy method there to make it more verbose. And that's it. Now you need to remember that when your function's done, you need to finish indenting, so that Python knows that your function definition is done. All right, so let's do the same thing for the other function. In this case, we want to convert Fahrenheit to Celsius. And our input is going to be degrees. I'll just put degrees far here so I don't have to spell out Fahrenheit every time. Again, we use our colon, and then we just return the value. So here, this is our formula. In this case, F is going to be our input value, so degrees far. Now we have both functions. Just for kicks, I'm going to hit run to see if there's any obvious syntax errors. It doesn't do anything because we're not asking it to do anything here, but we're also not getting any errors. So we're good so far. The next piece of the problem is to prompt the user for input. First, we want to ask them to enter temperature in degrees Fahrenheit, and then we want to output that answer. So from the previous chapters, you know that to get user input, use the input function. We want to assign it to a variable. So let's say answer Fahrenheit equals, and we use input function, and to do a prompt, we send this optional argument, which is a string. We want to say enter the degrees in Fahrenheit. Put a space there. And what that'll do is it'll prompt the user on the screen to enter an input. So now we want to send that input into our function. So what we can do is, let's rename this input, and we'll say answer far equals, we want to convert the Fahrenheit to Celsius here. So convert far to Cel is the name of our function. And we need to input the degrees Fahrenheit that we want to convert. So we want to put in their input. Then, and this will give us an error, but we'll deal with that in a second. I want you to see what it is. So now we want to output something to the screen. And you can see that we're going to have some values we want to put in the output. like what they put in and then the answer. We also want to format the answer. We're going to use string interpolation for this. So as you remember, string interpolation starts with F, and then you can put everything in your quotes. So we want to say whatever value they entered. So in here, we put input var degrees F equals, and then we want to say the answer. So in this case, our answer var degrees C. So if you want to, you can pause the video and see if you can figure out where the error is going to occur. I'm going to go ahead and run this, and we'll see together. 72. The error I've got here is in my function. It says unsupported operand types for string and int. So operands are the two things on either side of the operator. So in this case, it thinks that one of the values we have is a string. So what's happening here is this degrees Fahrenheit is being passed into our function as a string. And that's expected behavior because the input function always returns a string. So what we want to do is we want to treat it as a float. So to do that, hopefully you remember from the previous chapter, we use the float function. We just put that around the value that is going to be a string. Let's run this again. Okay, so now we got an answer, no errors, but this is too many values after the dot. You can see it says all converted temperatures should be rounded to 2 decimal places. Hopefully you remember from last chapter. If you don't, it's fine. These aren't always things that we memorize, but they're things that are easy to look up. So in this case, what we want to do is take our value here, and we can put a colon dot to F. What that'll do is it'll round to the nearest 2 places after the decimal. So let's try this again. You can see we're getting our expected output here. Now we're going to have the same problem, that same error with the previous function, with the other function as well. So here we're going to go ahead and just be preemptive here and proactive and cast that to a float as well. Now we want to do the other input. So input Celsius equals input, enter a temperature, enter a temperature in Celsius. Put a space there. Our answer Celsius equals, and we want to convert cell to var as the name of our function, and we input, or we send in the input value. Then we print out the answer, and again we're going to use string interpolation here. Say input cell, so the answer they input for Celsius, and just to make this a little more obvious in case it's not, let's do this. Let's copy and paste the output we want to show on the screen. Okay. So this value right here is going to be whatever they entered for the Celsius. So we know we want to interpolate there. So we just put the left and right squiggly curly brace around it. In this case, it's our input Celsius. And then this value here, we're also going to put the curly braces around. And this is our answer Celsius. And again, we do colon dot to F to get the formatting that we want. So let's go ahead and hit run. At 72, we get 22 degrees Celsius. Now entering a temperature in Celsius, let's say 37. Whoops, 37. A value of 98.60 degrees. So in this challenge, we defined 2 functions, and then we called those functions. We also practiced our string interpolation and had a little refresher on how to format the output. And also, we had another refresher on casting types to a different type. So in this case, the input function made this value and this value strings. So when we send it into our function, we want to make sure that we cast that string to a float. So if you had any questions on this, you can email me, or even better, start a conversation in Canvas with me, and I'll be happy to explain it. Thank you.